Why, hello YouTube, greetings from the Lazy Eyebrow. It's common knowledge by this point about what the glaring issue on Earthrise, Ironhide, and Ratchet is. Like, when Siege was a thing, it was a nuisance, but fine, it's Cybertronian, it could look like a rectangle on wheels for all we knew, and we could be told, it's pre-Earth, so that's why it looks the way it was. For Earthrise though, they retooled the entire figure to give us an Earth-based vehicle, which is pretty cool, except for some unknown reason elected to keep the feet unmodified. This was a terrible decision in my eyes, as well as the majority of the fan base, at least the ones I've talked to. Thankfully, Funby Studios decided they didn't like that, and designed feet that sort of look like the back of a cherry vignette, but stylized to how they want it. Well, last week Earthrise Ratchet appeared on my doorstep, still waiting on an Ironhide, and this was the first look for me at the new design. And I was all set to replace these with the Funby set, so I bought it after taking some reference photos, and I, wasn't impressed. Like, first issue. I had no clue how to orient this thing for printing. Every which way I did left some weird overhang somewhere that needed dealt with in some support way in some way or another, whether I resin printed or FDM. Second issue, this doesn't line up with the vehicle. I did some measurements, I looked at photos of ones of people that had printed it for themselves, as well as the original promo shots, and it was too wide at the top. In hindsight, given the way the top of the vehicle slots into the robot, this sort of makes sense, and I'll give a pass for that. However, the bottom of the doors were too narrow, leaving this weird gap here. I mean, all things considered, given the option between this and what came with it, it's not the end of the world either, but a problem I noticed nonetheless. And keep in mind, I'm not trying to bash Funby here. They make good stuff. I mean, I bought this for a reason. I just ended up not liking it, mainly for the final issue. Third issue, this doesn't have a flat base for the robot to stand on. I had imported the design into Blender to see if I could tweak it for the overhang issue I had mentioned earlier for the ease of printing, and when I did, I noticed the back of the vehicle, which becomes the bottom of the foot in robot, wasn't even. The bumper sticks way too far out, the trunk release latch and the taillight are different heights, and the toes taper away. This makes sense as vehicularly this is how it should be, but in general, I just didn't like this. And there wasn't much I could do to tweak this for it to be good enough for my needs. So I set out for a full redesign. I went and took zoomed in shots from a far out distance to get as accurate of a silhouette as I could to the back of the vehicle mode and set to work. Found a bunch of reference pics of the 1982 Nissan Cherry Vignette, and 12 hours later, started printing this. This is my take on replacement feet for Earthrise, Ironhide, and Ratchet. As stated, this has been taken directly from the Cherry Vignette, with slight modification to the design for functional reasons, which I'll get into in a bit. As I mentioned before, the transformation of the roof leaves this area ever so slightly wider than the shape of the vehicle, but not much of that can be helped. Beyond that, everything else fits into the shape of Ratchet, so that's the vehicle mode. Honestly, if the only thing different between my design and theirs was just the aesthetics of vehicle mode, I wouldn't be making this video. So let's move on to robot mode. Transformation of Ratchet is identical, my design doesn't affect anything in that regard until we get to the very end. Here we just take the window, rotate it forward, and here we have our flat, stable base. In the design, I took care to make sure that the bumper and the trunk release latch were all level with each other for heel support. However, the glass tapers away like it would on any vehicle. So I designed a collapsible mushroom peg and figured out the exact placement of the axis point so that it can go from window to toe simply by rotating it 90 degrees. And then it too is also level with the tail light, bumper, and trunk release. This provides a flat, stable base for Ratchet to stand on and a solid looking foot. As for the aesthetic design, I went with the G1 toy inspired shin stickers, molded into the toe with that hexagon bit right where the toe bevels. Quite frankly, I'm super proud of this, as it's the first design I've ever made that incorporates articulation into it, as not only does it transform, but you get a toe in there now too, which is awesome. Now, as for downsides, there's two of them. For one, this design makes Ratchet lose a millimeter or about 1/32 of an inch in height. For a robot I personally feel should have been at least a little bit taller. I could have probably fixed this by adding more height to the bumper and extending it outward, but I felt that would make the back end look weird. At the end of the day, 1 millimeter isn't going to kill the look of the figure for me, and I think I can live with it. Second issue, this little piece that sticks up on the foot. Again, I don't find this all that much of an issue. If it wasn't here, there'd be this weird triangular chunk missing out of the vehicle out of the back. I mention it as I'm sure someone won't find it appealing, so now you know. So this was my design. Stable robot, good looking vehicle back end. Something I think should have been designed in the first place, as everything else got retooled. Why wouldn't the feet? If you like this version and are looking to buy or print your own, links can be found in the description or a pinned comment. Thanks for watching. This has been the Lazy Eyebrow. Instructions. So if buying this set as a print, there are instructions. Paint it how you see fit, let it dry, take collapsible peg, super glue this into the hole in the back door. When it's dry, apply corresponding window section. The side of the window that has the larger opening is the side that faces away from the foot. So my recommendation is find the larger opening, find the spot that sits flat on the ground, point it away from the door and see if the design lines up. Apply it to your foot if it does, then replace the feet on Ratchet or Ironhide, and you're done.